You have a goal that genuinely matters to you, not something you vaguely think you should do, something you actually want, something you have wanted for months or maybe years, something you think about regularly and feel genuinely excited about when you imagine it being real. And yet, the task sits unstarted, the deadline approaches, the opportunity passes, and you find yourself doing literally anything else, cleaning, scrolling, reorganizing things that do not need reorganizing, watching one more video, making one more cup of coffee, rather than doing the thing you genuinely want to do. And then comes the guilt, the self-criticism, the familiar internal monologue about being lazy, undisciplined, not serious enough, not committed enough, not good enough. But here is what that internal monologue has wrong. Procrastination is not laziness. It is not a discipline problem. It is not evidence that you do not really want what you say you want. Procrastination is a sophisticated emotional regulation strategy that your brain deploys to protect you from something it finds genuinely threatening. And until you understand what it is protecting you from, you will keep fighting it with willpower and losing. Every single time. Today we're going to show you the exact psychological mechanisms behind procrastination and what the science reveals about how to finally move without the resistance. Stay with us, because what you are about to understand about your own mind will change your relationship with procrastination permanently. Procrastination is not about time management. The most important and most liberating reframe in all of procrastination research is this one. Procrastination is not a time management problem. For decades, productivity experts treated procrastination as a failure to organize time effectively. The solution was always more systems, better schedules, tighter deadlines, stronger accountability structures. And for most chronic procrastinators, none of it worked. Not sustainably, not at the level of the tasks that mattered most. Because the research, particularly the landmark work of psychologist Piers Steele, who spent over a decade synthesizing procrastination research, reveals something that completely reframes the problem. Procrastination is an emotion regulation problem. People do not procrastinate because they cannot manage their time. They procrastinate because they are managing their emotions, specifically the negative emotions associated with the task they are avoiding. The task produces an emotional response: anxiety, self-doubt, fear, boredom, frustration, overwhelm. And procrastination is your brain's strategy for escaping that emotional response in the short term by avoiding the task that produces it. This reframe changes everything, because it means the solution to procrastination is not a better calendar system. It is understanding and addressing the specific emotional response the task is producing, the fear underneath the delay. So what specific emotional responses most commonly drive procrastination? And why do they appear most intensely around tasks that matter most to us? The first and most powerful is fear of failure. Psychologist Carol Dweck's decades of research on mindset revealed something profound about how people relate to their own potential. People who believe their abilities are fixed, that they either have what it takes or they do not, experience attempts at important tasks as tests of their fundamental worth. If the task matters and you fail at it, you have not just failed at a task. You have received evidence about your fundamental capability and value as a person. This is an emotionally unbearable prospect for many people. And procrastination is the elegant psychological solution, because as long as you have not genuinely tried, you have not genuinely failed. The potential remains intact. The dream remains undamaged. Your self-image remains protected. The painful irony is that the tasks most worth doing, the ones most connected to your genuine goals and deepest values, produce the most intense fear of failure and therefore the most powerful procrastination. This is why you can complete low-stakes tasks with ease and find yourself paralyzed specifically around the things that matter most. The paralysis is proportional to the stakes. And the stakes are high because you actually care. Perfectionism as procrastination, there is a specific form of fear of failure that deserves its own discussion because it is so commonly misunderstood. Perfectionism. Most people think of perfectionism as a high standard for quality. In reality, clinical perfectionism, the kind that drives procrastination, is not about standards at all. It is about fear. Perfectionist procrastinators do not delay because they want something to be perfect. They delay because starting means confronting the gap between what they are capable of producing and the standard they believe is required for their work to be acceptable. Psychologist Paul Hewitt's research on perfectionism identifies a particularly destructive form called socially prescribed perfectionism. The belief that other people require perfection from you and will judge, reject, or dismiss you if your output falls short of that standard. People experiencing socially prescribed perfectionism do not just fear failing themselves. They fear being seen to fail, being judged as inadequate, being revealed as less capable than people believe them to be. And the solution their brain generates is elegant in its self-defeating logic. If you never finish, never actually submit, publish, present, or share your work, you can never be judged on it. The work in progress is always potentially perfect. The completed work is irrevocably real and therefore irrevocably judgeable. Procrastination keeps the work safely in the realm of potential. Starting, truly starting, means accepting that what you produce will be real and therefore imperfect. And for the perfectionist procrastinator, that is a psychologically terrifying step. Task aversion and immediate mood repair, not all procrastination is driven by fear. There is another equally powerful emotional mechanism that drives avoidance of tasks that do not feel threatening, but simply feel unpleasant. Psychologists call it task aversion. Research by Timothy Pychyl at Carleton University, one of the world's leading procrastination researchers, found that the most consistent predictor of whether a person would procrastinate on a task was not its importance, not its deadline, not its complexity, but how they felt about doing it. Boring, frustrating, meaningless, anxiety-producing, unpleasant in any way. Tasks that produce negative emotional states in anticipation are tasks the brain will automatically seek to avoid, regardless of how important they are or how negative the consequences of avoidance will be. And here's what makes this particularly powerful. Choosing to do something enjoyable instead of the aversive task, scrolling your phone, watching something, doing a more pleasant task, immediately repairs your mood. The negative emotion associated with the avoided task disappears the moment you redirect your attention elsewhere. Your brain learns this pattern very quickly. Task appears. Negative emotion follows. Avoidance makes negative emotion disappear. Therefore, avoidance works. From a pure, immediate emotional reward perspective, procrastination is extraordinarily effective. It does exactly what it is designed to do. It makes you feel better right now. The cost, the anxiety, the guilt, the deadline pressure, the consequences of not doing the task all arrive later. And your brain's reward system heavily discounts future costs in favor of immediate relief. The procrastination doom loop. Here is the most psychologically damaging aspect of chronic procrastination that most people experience, but few understand clearly. The doom loop. You avoid a task because it produces anxiety. The avoidance temporarily relieves the anxiety, but the task remains undone. And the longer it remains undone, the more anxiety it accumulates. Because now you're anxious about the task itself, and anxious about the time you have already lost, and anxious about the growing gap between where you are and where you need to be. This increased anxiety makes the task feel even more emotionally threatening, which makes avoidance feel even more necessary, which produces more guilt and self-criticism, which further increases your anxiety and reduces your confidence, which makes starting feel even harder. The procrastinator is not being lazy. They're trapped in a self-reinforcing anxiety cycle where the act of avoidance is continuously increasing the emotional cost of starting, making the very thing that would end their suffering feel increasingly impossible to do. What actually breaks the procrastination cycle here is what the research actually shows works. Not motivational advice, but genuine psychological interventions backed by evidence. First, self-compassion over self-criticism. This finding surprised many researchers when it first emerged. Studies by Kristen Neff and Michael Wall showed that people who responded to their own procrastination with self-compassion, acknowledging that they had avoided something, treating themselves with understanding rather than harsh judgment, and moving forward without excessive guilt, procrastinated less on future similar tasks than people who responded with harsh self-criticism. Self-criticism increases the anxiety and shame associated with the task, making the emotional barrier to starting even higher. Self-compassion reduces that emotional barrier, making starting feel psychologically safer. Beating yourself up about procrastinating does not motivate action. It deepens the avoidance. Second, implementation intentions over vague goals. Research by psychologist Peter Gollwitzer shows that vague intentions, "I will work on this project this week," are dramatically less effective at producing action than specific implementation intentions. "I will work on this project on Tuesday at 9 a.m. at my desk for 30 minutes. The specificity removes the decision-making burden that your brain uses as an opportunity to redirect toward avoidance. When the when, where, and how long are predetermined, your brain has fewer openings to negotiate its way out of starting. Third, the 2-minute rule applied psychologically. The goal is not to complete the task. The goal is to start it. Research consistently shows that getting started is the most psychologically difficult part of any avoided task, and that once genuinely started, most people continue far beyond their initial minimum intention. Committing only to 2 minutes of genuine engagement with the task removes the emotional weight of the entire task from the decision to begin. You are not committing to finishing. You're not committing to producing anything good. You are committing only to starting for 2 minutes. And that specific reframe makes beginning feel psychologically manageable, even for the most anxious procrastinator. Fourth, address the fear directly, not the behavior. If your procrastination is driven by fear of failure or perfectionism, and for the most important tasks, it almost always is, behavioral strategies alone will not sustainably break the cycle. The fear needs to be directly addressed. Journaling specifically about what you are afraid will happen if you start and fail, making the fear explicit rather than leaving it as a vague, threatening presence, consistently reduces its power. Fear operates most effectively in the dark. Bringing it into conscious examination diminishes it. Close. You're not lazy. You're not undisciplined. You are not someone who does not really want what you say you want. You are a human being with a brain that is trying to protect you from emotional pain, using the only strategy it has learned works in the short term, even when that strategy is costing you everything you actually want in the long term. Now that you understand exactly what your procrastination is protecting you from, and exactly what psychological tools the research shows can genuinely dismantle it, you have something more powerful than motivation. You have understanding. And understanding your own mind is always where real change begins. If this video explains something about yourself that you have been frustrated by for years, share it with someone who needs to hear that their procrastination is not a character flaw. Because somewhere right now, someone is beating themselves up for something this video could finally explain. Subscribe to Mind Body Truth for more videos that pull back the curtain on the hidden psychology behind your habits, your health, and your mind. Because you were never the problem. You just needed the right explanation.